Have you ever wondered what it would be like to see the life you abandoned 6 years later? Not in your dreams, not in your guilt-ridden imagination, but right there in front of you, real, breathing, walking past you like you never existed. This is the story of Victoria Martinez, and this is the moment everything changed. Picture this: Denver International Airport, a Tuesday morning in winter, snow falling gently outside, blurring the glass panels of the terminal. Inside, the world is moving fast, wheels clicking on polished floors, children crying, suitcases rolling toward destinations unknown. Everyone rushing somewhere, everyone belonging to someone. Victoria Martinez is 39 years old. She's one of the most powerful women in global technology, CEO of Nexus Industries, a name that makes boardrooms in San Francisco and Tokyo sit up and pay attention. She's wearing a designer coat, expensive heels, the kind of confidence that comes from conquering the world. That morning, she's scheduled to board a private jet to Geneva, a keynote address on sustainable innovation. Her assistant has already cleared security. The gate to the private terminal is just ahead. Just a few more steps. Just another flight. Just another speech. But Victoria never makes that final turn. Because through the glass partition, the one separating first-class passengers from the private terminal, she sees something. Someone. A man, kneeling down, tying a child's shoelace. His coat is cheaper than she remembers. His hair is thinner. But there's no mistaking that profile. Those hands. The way he moves with such quiet purpose. Marcus. Her breath catches in her throat. He stands up slowly. Still doesn't see her. And beside him are two girls. One has long blonde hair, eyes buried in a book. The other is struggling with her coat, laughing, pointing at a vending machine. Victoria's heart stops. She hasn't seen those eyes in 6 years, but she recognizes them instantly. Because they're hers. Sophie and Emma, the twin daughters she walked away from when they were only 2 days old. The intercom crackles overhead. Flight 227 to Phoenix now boarding at gate C3. But Victoria can't hear it. She can't breathe. Because every suppressed memory, every image she's locked away for 6 years, comes crashing through her defenses like a flood bursting through a dam. Two hospital bracelets on tiny wrists, her own shaking hands signing discharge papers. Alone. The look on Marcus's face that last morning when she told him, "I can't do this. I can't be a mother. I can't stay." Her eyes are locked on the girls now. Sophie turns a page in her book without looking up. Emma tugs at Marcus's sleeve. He laughs. Soft, tired, real. Then he looks up. Their eyes meet across that crowded terminal. It lasts maybe 3 seconds, maybe less. But in that brief moment, Victoria feels an earthquake ripple through her entire being. Marcus doesn't wave, doesn't blink, doesn't show any emotion at all. He just stares. And then, slowly, deliberately, he turns away, places himself between her and the children. A wall, a protector. She hadn't expected a welcome, but she also hadn't expected nothing. This complete absence of reaction, as if she's a stranger, as if she means nothing at all. Her phone buzzes in her hand. Her assistant. "The pilot is ready. They're waiting for your clearance." Victoria doesn't move, doesn't reply. The flight will leave without her. Let it. She stands there, motionless, as the world continues its frantic pace around her, as if she's stepped outside of time itself, outside of her own life. Finally, she turns, walks in the opposite direction, not back to the private lounge, not toward the exit, just somewhere quiet, somewhere she can think, somewhere she can fall apart without an audience. She finds an empty gate, sits alone in the corner, opens her phone with trembling fingers, types in his name, Marcus Chen. The number is still there, still saved in her contacts. It survived 6 years of promotions, new phones, new passwords, countless fresh starts. But she's never deleted it. Her thumb hovers over the call button. She can't press it. Instead, she types a message. "It's me." She stares at the words. Too open, too careless. She deletes them. Types again. It's me. This time she just stares, her finger hovering over send. Minutes pass, 5, 10, 15. Finally, she turns off the screen. Hours later, Victoria is alone on her private jet, flying back to San Francisco. The hum of engines is her only company. The cabin is dark, empty, just like her. She sits by the window and whispers to no one. They're not babies anymore. And for the first time in years, her voice cracks. Really cracks. Like something inside her has finally broken open. Outside the window, the snow has stopped falling. But inside her, something has just begun to melt. The Gulf Stream lands in San Francisco beneath a low gray sky. Victoria steps out. No entourage, no press. No assistant holding a tablet with her schedule. Just her carry-on in hand, coat buttoned, and crushing unbearable silence. She goes straight to her office. 48th floor of the Nexus Tower, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She tells her assistant one thing. No calls until I say otherwise. Then closes the door. The city sprawls below like any other Tuesday. But Victoria isn't looking at the skyline. She's looking at her reflection in the glass. Her face has aged well, sharp, maintained. Evidence of expensive skincare and disciplined living. Success written in every line. But her eyes tell a different story. They're tired in a way no product can fix. Haunted by 6 years of running. A soft knock interrupts her thoughts. Cameron enters. Her most discreet liaison, former CIA analyst. The woman who handles things that can't appear on any official record. She doesn't wait for permission, just hands over a charcoal folder and says 2 words. He's in Seattle. Victoria sits down. The leather chair creaks beneath her. She opens the folder with hands that suddenly feel unsteady. The first page, Marcus Chen, age 42. Current occupation, part-time music teacher at a charter middle school. Income, just above state minimum. Residence, small rental near Green Lake. Medical diagnosis. Victoria's eyes stop. ALS, diagnosed 8 months ago. Early onset. She stares at that line, reads it again, and again. ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a term too clinical for the devastating storm it represents. A progressive disease, no cure. The body slowly shutting down while the mind remains trapped inside. Her hands are shaking now. She flips to the next page, photographs. The first shows Marcus walking with Sophie and Emma after school, snowflakes tangled in the girl's hair, all 3 of them bundled in winter coats, the girls holding his hands. The next photo. Marcus seated at a keyboard in what looks like a music room, helping a student with posture. His smile tired, his body noticeably thinner than she remembers. But his hands are still steady, though not as steady as they once were. The next image stops her cold. Marcus asleep on a couch, both girls sleeping against him, one on each shoulder. Coffee mugs on the table. One says, "Best dad ever." The other has a chipped heart design. Victoria blinks hard, looks away, her hand tightening on the edge of the desk until her knuckles turn white. "There's more," Cameron says gently, from a side envelope. She pulls out a scanned page, handwritten sheet music, half-scribbled lyrics beneath the staff lines. "I tried to build a song with what you left me, but the melody breaks where your name should be." The last line is unfinished. A black ink pen mark hanging at the edge, like someone stopped mid-thought, unable to continue. "It's from his personal journal," Cameron explains quietly. "I traced it through a shared school drive. He uploads lyrics for his students. This one was never submitted, just saved." Victoria doesn't reply, can't reply. She places the paper down as carefully as if it were made of glass. Then she stands, walks to her office safe, turns the lock with practiced precision, removes a small box wrapped in dark blue linen. Inside are 2 sealed envelopes. Each one bears a name in her distinctive handwriting. Sophie, Emma. She wrote these letters 5 years ago. When the girls turned 5, she was going to send them, explain everything. But she didn't. Year after year, she told herself, next year would be the right time. Next year never came. She places the letters gently beside Marcus's unfinished music, then sits back down, picks up her phone. The message she typed at the airport is still there, unsent. It's me. She stares at it, as if the words might blink. Respond. Forgive her. But the screen stays silent. This time she presses send. Not from impulse, not from panic, but because she's finally run out of reasons not to. The next day, Victoria's plane touches down in Seattle. The sky is thick with gray clouds. She doesn't leave the terminal for almost half an hour, just sits in a private lounge, coat draped over her arm. Watching people rush by in scarves and winter jackets, all of them looking like they belong somewhere, to someone. The driver her assistant arranged holds a discreet sign. Ms. M. Victoria nods, steps into the black SUV, pulls the door shut. The cold Seattle air has teeth. The silence inside the vehicle has sharper ones. She's not here to speak, not to confront, not today. She's come only to observe, to see with her own eyes what her choices created. The medical clinic is a modest brick building near Green Lake Park. Victoria waits across the street, in the SUV, behind tinted glass, her breath shallow, her heart beating in an unfamiliar rhythm of anticipation and dread. Then she sees them. Marcus emerges first, leaning ever so slightly on the railing for support. A winter hat pulled low over his forehead, and the twins flank him like loyal shadows. Sophie on his right, Emma on his left, each one holding his hand with fierce protectiveness. Victoria doesn't realize she's holding her breath until her lungs begin to burn. Marcus pauses at the sidewalk, looks both ways, then turns in her direction. Their eyes meet, through 2 panes of glass, through 6 years of silence. He doesn't flinch, doesn't wave, doesn't smile. He just stares, his lips tightening, not in shock, not in sadness, but in a kind of quiet, bone-deep recognition. The kind that says, "So you finally showed up." The car door opens before Victoria realizes she's touched the handle. Cold air hits her like a slap. "Marcus," she says, her voice breathless, uncertain. The girls turn slowly. Emma blinks in confusion, trying to process this stranger who seems to know her father. Sophie freezes, her gaze narrowing, as if trying to understand something her heart doesn't want to accept. Marcus steps forward, raises one hand, as if to physically stop her approach. "You don't get to do this," he says, his voice firm but eerily calm. "I'm not here to cause a scene," Victoria manages. I just wanted to see them." "They didn't want to see you disappear," Marcus replies, each word deliberate, cutting. "But that happened anyway." His words hit like frostbite, slow, numbing, inevitable. Victoria looks down at the slush around the tires, gray and dirty from the day's traffic. Nothing pure remains, nothing soft, just like this moment. "They don't need you to watch from a distance, Victoria," Marcus continues. "They needed you to stay. That opportunity passed 6 years ago." Sophie tugs at Marcus's coat sleeve. "Dad, can we go inside? It's cold." He turns to her, immediate tenderness. "Yeah, sweetheart, let's go." The 3 of them walk toward the clinic entrance, a united front that clearly doesn't include her. Victoria stays behind the SUV, unable to move forward, unable to retreat. But just before the clinic door slides shut, Sophie turns back. Not with anger, not with tears, but with a single penetrating look, sharp, alert, and wet in the corners. The look of a child who remembers everything, even if she can't articulate what she remembers. Then the glass doors swallow her, and Victoria is alone again. That evening, Victoria sits on the edge of her hotel bed, listening to the hum of the central heater blend with the silence inside her chest. She hasn't cried, not since landing in Seattle, but something in that encounter, something in Sophie's final glance, has cracked her open in a place no boardroom victory has ever reached. 2 days later, a text appears on her phone. No name, just an address and a time. "If you're still here, tomorrow, 3 p.m. The cafe hasn't changed in 6 years. Still the same oak counter, still those dusty chalkboard menus, still the off-key bell above the door that rings whenever someone enters. Victoria steps inside slowly, her heels tapping against the tiled floor, like a ghost returning to haunt familiar ground. Marcus is already there, seated at a corner table. No coat, just a navy blue sweater she remembers folding once in another lifetime. His fingers tap lightly on the table, a rhythm she recognizes, restless, musical, filled with unspoken words. She almost smiles at the familiar gesture. He doesn't stand when she sits down. Doesn't ask how she's been. Doesn't make small talk. Doesn't even look up at first. Instead, he slides a napkin across the table, handwritten, her name at the top, and just one question underneath. Why did you leave? Victoria folds her arms tightly across her chest, as if to physically hold herself together. When her voice finally comes, it surprises even her with its steadiness. Because I didn't trust myself to stay. Marcus's eyes lift to meet hers, not searching for lies, but for understanding. I had postpartum psychosis, Marcus, the real kind, the clinical kind, the kind where you stare out a window at 3 a.m. and wonder if falling might finally quiet the noise in your head. The silence that follows feels infinite. I was terrified I'd hurt them, or you, or myself. I didn't want our daughters to grow up remembering a mother who scared them, who screamed in the middle of the night, who forgot their names and didn't recognize her own hands. So I ran. Marcus blinks slowly, processing, then looks away toward a memory he's refused to feed for 6 years. You could have said something, he says quietly. You could have let me in. We could have faced it together. Victoria nods, tears finally breaking through. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But by the time I had the words to explain what was happening to me, the silence between us had become louder than all the screaming inside my head. The server arrives with menus. Neither of them looks. Marcus orders black coffee. Victoria orders nothing. He reaches into his coat pocket, pulls out a folded sheet of paper. Old, worn at the corners. This is the last thing I wrote before you left. He places it on the table between them. Sheet music, unfinished. Notes trailing off in measure 23. Faint pencil markings in the corner. Crossed out lyrics. I tried to finish it after you were gone, Marcus says softly. But nothing ever came. The song died when you left. Victoria touches the edge of the page. Reverently. Do you still play? Sometimes, when the girls ask. Another heavy silence. I'm not asking for forgiveness for the years I lost, Victoria says carefully. I know those are gone forever. I just want the chance to make the years ahead count, to make it up to Sophie and Emma, in whatever way they'll allow. Marcus doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he stands, preparing to leave. If you're serious, he says, meeting her eyes one final time. Thursday morning, the ice skating rink downtown. Sophie and Emma will be there. Then he walks out, without another word. Victoria remains in the cafe long after the sun has dipped behind the mountains, staring at the unfinished sheet music, wondering if some songs were ever meant to end. And we heard Marcus's challenge. Thursday morning, the ice skating rink. If you're serious, now comes the hardest part. Now Victoria has to prove she means it. It was Emma who suggested the skating rink, and not for the reason you might think. She didn't suggest it because she wanted to see Victoria again. She suggested it because she thought it would be funny to watch that woman try to stand on ice skates. Sophie didn't protest, which Marcus took as tacit agreement. Thursday morning arrives cold and clear. The skating rink hasn't changed in years. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead like tired memories. The air smells of stale popcorn and rental skates that have seen better days. A rusty banner still hangs from the ceiling. Winter is where magic learns to balance. Victoria tightens her coat around herself as she steps inside. She doesn't feel magical. She feels terrified. She stands by the bleachers watching Sophie and Emma lace their skates with practiced efficiency. They're fast, confident, completely in sync with each other, two halves of the same whole. Marcus watches from the far railing, giving them space, but keeping close watch, always protecting. Victoria's hands tremble as she picks up rental skates, like everything else in her life now, borrowed and temporary. She walks toward the ice. The first 10 minutes are humiliation on repeat. She wobbles, slips, catches herself on the railing, nearly collides with a teenager carrying nachos. Her expensive coat is no match for the unforgiving ice. Emma giggles openly. The sound is bright, unfiltered, honest. Sophie looks away, arms folded, unimpressed. Victoria exhales, smiles despite her embarrassment, and tries again. Badly, but she tries. And then she notices something small but significant. Every time she falls and gets back up, Emma's glances last a little longer, a little less mocking, a little more curious. Sophie's arms fold a little less tightly. Her posture softens by just a degree. They skate together for nearly 20 minutes, in a loose triangle. No words exchanged, just proximity. 3 points of a constellation beginning to recognize their formation. Later, on a bench beside the rink, Emma sits down with one skate removed, rubbing her ankle. Her long brown hair is tangled and matted near the back from exertion and static. Victoria watches, then instinctively reaches toward her. "May I help with that?" Emma doesn't answer, but she doesn't move away either. A fragile permission. Victoria turns slightly to face her, attempts to gather the tangled hair. She tries to remember techniques from YouTube tutorials she watched obsessively the night before. Left over right, then pull through. But her fingers fumble badly. She twists instead of weaving. The attempted braid looks like a defeated pretzel. Emma winces as Victoria accidentally pulls too tight. "Sorry, hold on, let me try again." "Stop!" Sophie's voice cuts through the moment. Victoria freezes, looks up, fear flooding through her that she's crossed an invisible line. Sophie kneels down beside them, pulls a purple elastic band from her wrist, hands it to Victoria without meeting her eyes. "Use this," Sophie instructs. "It holds better." Victoria takes the elastic slowly, as if accepting a precious gift. "Thank you," she whispers. Sophie stands back up, her expression carefully neutral. "It's for the braid," she clarifies, "not for you." There's a weighted pause, the kind that holds 6 years of hurt and a tiny sliver of hope. Then Victoria asks quietly, "Do you braid Emma's hair often?" Sophie shrugs with practiced casualness. "Someone has to." "That makes sense." Victoria pauses, chooses her next words carefully. "Would you mind showing me how, next time?" Sophie doesn't answer, but she also doesn't walk away. Another small opening, another tentative thread of connection. Emma tilts her head to examine her reflection on a phone screen. The braid is lumpy, half-formed, but complete. "It's okay," Emma pronounces with surprising generosity, "for a first try." Then she adds, almost as an afterthought, "Don't give up." Victoria's breath catches, because those are the exact words Marcus used the night she left. His final words to her before she walked out the door. Don't give up. But she did. She gave up on everything. And now here's this little girl, this daughter she doesn't know, offering her the same grace her father once did. In the car ride home, Marcus is silent in the driver's seat. The twins munch quietly on crackers from the vending machine. Victoria stares out the window, processing the complicated success of the afternoon. Then gently, a small hand taps her arm. "Emma." The girl hands Victoria a folded piece of paper, doesn't meet her eyes, then quickly turns away as if embarrassed by her own gesture. Victoria unfolds it with careful, reverent hands. It's a drawing, childish but warm, created with the earnest intensity only children possess. 3 stick figures stand on ice, surrounded by carefully drawn snowflakes. One figure has a ponytail and arms flailing awkwardly. The caption, written in Emma's uncertain handwriting, reads, "Mom's first try, still worth it. Mom." Victoria swallows hard against the lump forming in her throat. She keeps the paper not in her purse, but in her chest pocket, directly over her heart. Outside, the sky has deepened to the color of slate. The last snow flurries of late winter flutter through the air like bits of torn paper. The car ride continues in comfortable silence. But inside Victoria's chest, something fundamental has shifted. Not healing yet, but beginning to thaw. That night, after the girls go to bed and the dishes are stacked quietly in the drying rack, Victoria stands at Marcus's kitchen sink, staring out the window at the dark neighborhood beyond. It feels almost normal, almost domestic, almost like she belongs here. In the reflection of the glass, she catches a glimpse of Marcus walking down the hallway toward the bathroom. His posture seems slightly more labored than usual. One hand resting on the wall as if he needs the support. He doesn't return. There's a thud, a wet, sudden sound, like someone dropping a heavy object on tile. Sophie's scream tears through the hallway seconds later. Raw with terror, Victoria's feet slam against the hardwood floor. She reaches the bathroom doorway at the same moment Sophie does, both of them driven by the same desperate fear. Marcus is crumpled near the base of the bathtub, one hand curled near his chest, the other twitching unnaturally, as if it no longer belongs to him. His face is pale, too pale, and his breathing comes in shallow, fractured gasps. For one terrible moment, Victoria freezes. Then something inside her clicks into place. Some instinct she didn't know she still had. "Sophie!" she snaps, her voice steady despite the panic flooding her system. "Get your phone. Call 911. Right now." Sophie obeys without argument. Her wide eyes and trembling fingers dial the 3 numbers that connect to emergency services. Victoria drops to her knees beside Marcus, whispers his name over and over like a prayer, brushes damp hair from his forehead, checks his pulse with fingers that barely remember a long-ago CPR certification. "Stay with me," she begs, her voice breaking for the first time since arriving in Seattle. "Please, Marcus, just stay. Don't you dare leave them. Don't you dare." She hears Sophie on the phone in the background, giving the address, describing what happened, her voice shaking but clear. Emma appears in the doorway, face pale with shock. "Is Dad going to die?" she whispers. Victoria turns to her, meets those wide, terrified eyes, eyes that look so much like her own. "No," Victoria says firmly. "He's going to be okay. The ambulance is coming. We're going to take care of him." She doesn't know if it's true, but she says it anyway. Because that's what mothers do. They offer certainty when the world is falling apart. By the time the ambulance's flashing lights paint the frosted windows in urgent reds and blues, Emma is clinging to her sister. Both girls wrapped in coats thrown hastily over pajamas, their faces frozen in shock. Victoria rides in the front seat of the ambulance, arms clenched tight across her chest, every mile feeling like an unbearable eternity. Behind her, in the back, the paramedics work quickly, efficiently. She can hear the beeping of monitors, the calm, clipped voices, and she prays. For the first time in years, Victoria Martinez prays. The emergency room at Seattle Regional is cold and blue-lit, sterile in every way except for the raw human ache it contains within its walls. Marcus is taken directly to the ICU for cardiac evaluation. The diagnosis comes within the hour. Minor cardiac arrhythmia brought on by prolonged stress. Underlying fatigue, possible dehydration, and the progressive effects of ALS on his autonomic nervous system. They're monitoring him overnight for stabilization. Victoria sits in the waiting room. The girls sleep fitfully on 2 connected chairs, their small bodies curled together for comfort. Victoria's heels sit abandoned on the floor beside her. Her hands are empty. No phone, no briefing papers, no deals to review. Just her, just this moment, just the terrible weight of almost losing him before she'd had the chance to make anything right. The nurse emerges just after 2 in the morning, her voice gentle with practiced compassion. "He's asking for you," she says, "and he said to bring the girls if they're awake." They're not fully awake, but Victoria gently rouses them, carries Emma in her arms, holds Sophie's hand. They enter the pale, humming stillness of ICU room 7B. Marcus looks smaller in the hospital bed. Paler, yes, but diminished in a way that goes beyond physical illness. He looks like a man who has carried too much for too long, finally forced to rest. "Hey," he says with a weak smile. "Thanks for coming." "I didn't hesitate," Victoria replies, her voice soft but cutting through the antiseptic air, like truth itself. "I left a conference call with the International Clean Water Coalition mid-sentence. Didn't even say goodbye to anyone." Marcus chuckles weakly, then winces at the effort. "That's progress." Victoria sits in the chair beside his bed. The girls have already fallen asleep again, curled together on an extra cot the nurse provided. I don't know how much time I've got left, Marcus says quietly, his eyes on the ceiling. No one ever does, really. But I do know this. He turns his head, looks at her directly. If you've truly changed, if you're really going to be here for them, for us, then you can't disappear again. Not ever. They can't survive another abandonment, Victoria, and neither can I. She stares at him, seeing not accusation in his tired eyes, but openness, a door not fully closed. Not yet. I won't, she says with absolute certainty. I'm done running. From them. From you. From myself. I'm done. Silence settles between them, heavy with years of pain, but also with the possibility of something new. Good, Marcus finally says, because they've just started to notice the shape of your shadow in their lives, and they'll miss it forever if it vanishes again. Around 4 in the morning, Sophie stirs, sits up. The room is quiet except for the soft, rhythmic beeping of monitors and the sound of her mother's breathing beside her father's bed. She doesn't say anything, doesn't wake anyone. She simply stands, walks to the supply cabinet, takes the light hospital blanket folded at the edge of the cot, and gently drapes it over Victoria's shoulders. Then she returns to her corner, lies down again, closes her eyes against emotions too complicated to name. It's the first time she's covered her mother in warmth, the first time she's offered care, the first time she's acknowledged her presence as something other than an intrusion. Victoria doesn't wake, doesn't move, but her fingers twitch slightly beneath the blanket, as if something in her chest has finally, after 6 impossible years, learned to exhale. Seattle, early autumn. The hospital sent Marcus home 3 days ago, with strict instructions and a medication regimen that fills half the kitchen counter. His steps are slower now, his voice comes out thinner, but somehow the small house feels more complete with Victoria inside it than it has in years. At 6:15 a.m., the coffee pot sputters to life, like it hasn't done in ages. Toast burns on the second try. A pan of pancakes smokes up the kitchen as Victoria mutters something about lying griddle temperature settings. Sophie walks in wearing 2 mismatched socks, staring at Victoria like she's a museum exhibit come to life. Victoria grins despite the smoke. Chef Disaster reporting for duty. Sophie blinks, then silently opens a window to let the smoke escape. And that's how it truly begins. Not with grand apologies or dramatic declarations, but with smoke alarms and burnt pancakes and the slow, unglamorous work of showing up. Day after day after day. By day 4, Victoria is managing school pickup duty, learning which classroom is Sophie's, which is Emma's, which teacher prefers email, and which prefers notes in the folder. On day 6, she forgets Emma's permission slip for a field trip, has to walk back through the elementary school hallway, her expensive heels echoing loudly, announcing her outsider status. Every parent turning to look at this stranger in designer clothes. On day 7, she argues with Sophie over which sweater matches her snow boots. Sophie wins the argument, as she should. Victoria's learning, slowly, that being a mother isn't about being right, it's about being present. But one afternoon, while putting away laundry, Victoria discovers something that changes everything. At the back of Sophie's closet, buried under old drawings and dried-up markers, sits a taped-up shoebox. Victoria hesitates. This feels like trespassing, like crossing a line. But curiosity wins. She opens it with trembling hands. Inside are dozens of sketches, crayon, pencil, marker, all drawn over the previous 6 years. Each one depicts a family. Some show 3 people, most show 4. And in every single image, there's a woman, sometimes faceless, sometimes wearing glasses, once even wearing what looks unmistakably like Victoria's signature white trench coat. But always the woman stands close to the father, and always holds the girl's hands. Victoria's fingers tremble as she flips through them, tears streaming freely down her face. Sophie has been drawing her for 6 years, drawing the mother she didn't have, the family she wanted, the life that should have been. The final drawing is different, more recent, the lines cleaner and more certain. It shows 4 figures standing beneath falling snow, 2 taller, 2 smaller. One woman has her arms wrapped around all 3 others, No detailed faces, no names written anywhere, just snow and connection and the suggestion of belonging. Victoria can barely breathe. All this time she thought Sophie hated her, resented her, wanted nothing to do with her. But this is hope, preserved in crayon and marker, hidden in a shoebox, waiting. That night, Victoria doesn't sleep. She sits at the dining table with a sketch pad in front of her, hands uncertain, lines awkward and unpracticed. But she tries to draw what Sophie imagined. The four of them standing together under falling snow. She messes up Marcus's nose completely, can't capture Emma's curls correctly. Sophie's proportions are all wrong, but she keeps going, line by line, stroke by stroke, until it feels not perfect but honest, a visual representation of hope rather than achievement. When she's done, she stares at it for a long time. Then she tapes it to the outside of Sophie's bedroom door, just above the doorknob, where the girl will see it first thing in the morning. She doesn't write a note, doesn't sign it, just leaves it there. An offering, an answer, a promise. The next day, no one says a word about the drawing. Victoria goes about her morning, makes breakfast, still burns the toast, but the eggs are edible, helps Emma find her library book, reminds Sophie about her science project. When she walks past Sophie's door that afternoon, her own awkward sketch is gone. Her heart sinks. Maybe it was too much, too presumptuous. Maybe Sophie threw it away. But later, when she gently pushes the door open to put away clean laundry, she sees it. Her drawing has been carefully repinned on the wall above Sophie's desk, placed directly beside the original crayon sketches, given equal space, equal importance, equal belonging. Victoria has to sit down on the edge of Sophie's bed because her legs suddenly won't hold her. That evening, she finds a single slice of toast on a napkin, sitting outside her temporary bedroom door. The butter is spread slightly unevenly, applied with more enthusiasm than skill. No one claims responsibility for leaving it, but when Victoria looks across the hallway, Sophie's door is open just an inch wider than usual, a silent acknowledgement, an offering of peace. The following evening, Marcus stands at the kitchen window, holding one of Sophie's old sketches in his hand. The snow outside is gentle, falling the way it did that first day Victoria arrived, soft and forgiving, covering the hard edges of the world. He turns to Victoria, his voice quiet but certain. "You're closer now than you've ever been, closer than I thought you'd ever get again." A pause weighted with significance, and for the first time in 6 years, he continues, "I'm not afraid of what that means." Victoria doesn't answer with words. She simply sits beside him on the worn couch, their shoulders touching, and lets the silence fill in everything that language can't capture. The slow rebuilding of trust. The tentative rekindling of something that never quite died, just went dormant through a long, terrible winter. Outside, the snow continues to fall, covering Seattle in a blanket of new beginnings. And inside, four people who were broken apart are slowly, carefully, learning how to become whole again. Not through grand gestures or miraculous transformations, but through burnt toast and braided hair and the brave, difficult choice to stay. Not just for a day, not just for a week, but for all the complicated, beautiful, imperfect days that will follow. Victoria has finally come home, not to a place, but to the people she should have never left. And this time, she's staying, 6 months later. Victoria is standing in the kitchen, making pancakes. They're still a little burnt around the edges, but edible. Progress. Sophie comes down the stairs, hair tangled from sleep. She doesn't say good morning, just walks over and leans against Victoria's side for a moment. A silent ritual they've developed. Connection without words. Emma follows, chattering about a dream she had. Something about flying penguins and chocolate rivers. Victoria listens, really listens, asks questions, laughs at the right parts. Marcus sits at the table, slower than he was 6 months ago. The ALS is progressing. They all know it. They don't talk about it every day, but it's there, like a shadow they've learned to live with. But he's smiling, watching his family move around the kitchen, and there's peace in his eyes. Last week, Victoria officially stepped down as CEO of Nexus Industries. She'll stay on as a consultant, but her days of flying to Geneva and Tokyo are over. She chose this small kitchen, these burnt pancakes, these two girls who are finally, slowly calling her mom because she finally understands. Success isn't measured in boardrooms or bank accounts. It's measured in braids that hold, in drawings taped to bedroom walls, in toast left outside doors, in the way Sophie leans against her side without thinking. It's measured in staying, even when it's hard, even when you fail, even when all you have to offer is imperfect love and the promise to try again tomorrow. Victoria looks at Marcus across the table. He raises his coffee mug slightly, a silent toast, to second chances, to songs that find their endings, to love that doesn't need to be rebuilt, just remembered and held and stayed with. Outside, the Seattle sky is clear for the first time in weeks, and inside, four hearts that were once scattered are finally, slowly, beating in the same rhythm. Not perfect, never perfect, but together, and that's more than enough. Thank you for staying with Victoria's story until the very end. If this journey touched your heart, if you've ever struggled with second chances or forgiveness, or the courage to stay when running feels easier, you're not alone. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply show up, imperfectly, honestly, and try again. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share new emotional, true story-inspired videos every day, each one a reminder that it's never too late to choose love over fear. See you in the next story. Until then, be kind to yourself. And remember, every day is a chance to start writing a better ending.